Hello, viewers. Today it's three-stage spring wine, not nine-stage spring wine, three, not nine. So the recipe that Cao Cao wrote was for 九醞春酒. So nine-stage spring wine, but I want to test this with my own experiment. So I'm not going to do 9 stages. I'm just going to do 3 stages. I'm going to try to simplify it. So that's what you're going to see today. After learning about the 9th-stage spring wine recipe, you can watch this video to learn more. The Divine Comedy Stupid Music video. That's about the 9-stage spring wine. I learned about that, and I want to see if I could possibly brew it. So I'm going to test a 3-stage version of this recipe. So I'm going to be making 三醞春酒. If you like this video, please click that like button and subscribe. It's really a big help in promoting this subject, rustic Asian rice wine. That's what I want to promote. That's the purpose of this channel. I want more people to know about rustic Asian rice wine. And if you want help, just click the like button, subscribe, click the bell to be notified of new videos that I publish every week. And that will really help promote rustic Asian rice wine. I want more people to know about it. So thanks for helping out. I appreciate it. Okay, special bonus, watch for a new steaming method later in this video. So how am I going to prepare for this? Well, let's look at the recipe. This is the entire recipe. It's 1,800 years old. So what parts of this text make sense to me, and how can I adapt this to a simpler 3-stage recipe for testing? And there's actually 4 excerpts from this recipe that I think are pretty clear and will give me definite information about how to proceed. So here's the first excerpt. It's 用chu 30斤流水5担. So that's use 30 jin of chu and 5 dan of flowing water. And luckily, both jin and dan both measure weight. And there's 120 jin in 1 dan. And so 30 jin is just 1/4 of 1 dan. So that's why that'll help get the right proportions for the chu, the fermentation starter, the enzymes, and the water. So here's the next excerpt. 3热一酿，满酒单米制. Okay, so that's 3 days, 1 brew. So that means do 1 stage every 3 days until it's full with 9 dan of rice. So my interpretation, other people's interpretation of this is that each stage is 1 dan of rice, and there's 9 stages in total. So that's that seems to be the accepted interpretation of this part of the recipe. So that's good. It tells us how much rice we're using. So we know how much rice, how much water, and how much chu we're going to need for this recipe. We have the right proportions. Okay, so that's important to start with. Let's see what else we can get from the recipe. We can get some idea of the timing or the temperature. Here's some dates. This is 腊月2日 自chu 正月冬节. So I know this is lunar calendar, but anyhow, it's the 12th month, 2nd day. So that's winter time, and a certain kind of soaked chu. Hopefully that kind of chu is similar to the Shanghai wine cakes I'm using. And it also refers, so I'm not sure if that means you should start the brewing process or the making of the chu in the 12th month. And something about in the 1st month, freezing and thawing. But in any case, you're supposed to brew this during the winter, ready for spring. And this is a relatively colder fermentation. That's what I get from this. And there's one other bit I'm interested in near the end of this recipe. This part, 所以可以. So, can also drink the sediment. So that's a very important indication. It means that this is a cloudy rice wine. You can drink the sediment. So that's important for me to know as well. So I hope that's enough to get me going, at least in some direction. This is the ratio I get from the text. It's 9 to 5 to 1/4 is the ratio rice, water to chu. And it's 1 dan of rice for each of the 9 stages. So let's convert that down to something that will fit in my jar. So I'm going to use 1,200 grams of rice, 667 milliliters of water, and something like 33 grams of chu. And instead of 9 stages, I'm going to combine 3 of those into 1. So the stages are going to be 3 times as large. So instead of 133 grams, it's going to be 400 grams of rice in each of the 3 stages. Okay, so that's going to be my proportion. And now we can just get started. Day 0, I'm going to use sweet rice that I normally use, nuomi, and 400 grams. Wash the rice gently, most 15 minutes. And I'm going to steam this later, but I am going to soak this for around 3 hours. And then drain it for 30 minutes. And then spread it evenly in the steamer. And the rice is in a damp cloth here. That's more than 400 grams because I'm doing this alongside other projects. Steam it for 40 minutes. And meanwhile, while that's steaming, let's get our enzymes ready. These are the Shanghai wine cakes, Shanghai Zhoubing wine, and they're also known as xiaoqu or yeast balls, Chinese yeast balls. I need at least 33 grams. Each ball is about 10. So I'm going to use 4. I don't want to use too little. I think it's better to use too much. So I grind that up. That should be good enough. And I'm going to dissolve that in water. And because I'm unsure if my yeast balls are good, I'm going to add some standard reliable enzymes from Angel Rice Leaven. So I'm going to use about half a pack here. That's about 1 tablespoon. So the yeast balls and the Angel Rice Leaven are good for supplying the enzymes that convert starch to sugar. I know they're going to make the rice sweet, but I need some good yeast to produce alcohol from the sugar, and I don't think I'm going to get that from these yeast balls or the Angel Rice Leaven. So I'm going to add my own yeast from a package, some specific white wine yeast that should have a high alcohol tolerance. I'm going to add half a teaspoon to that and stir it up. And now the rice is done steaming. I'm going to spread that out to cool and let it cool to room temperature. And I'm going to add what corresponded to 400 grams of rice that goes in the jar. So this is the first stage assembled, and I'm going to mix it by hand to make sure it's very evenly mixed. That looks good. And I'm going to keep the lid loose. Got to get some air here. I'm going to ferment that in a dark place. And now we're going to watch it ferment. Day 1, quite firm. It's absorbed the liquid and is not easy to stir. But it does, I do hear some bubbles, and it smells right. It is fermenting. Then day 2, so you can see some bubbles within the rice. The texture is still quite thick. The bubbles form within the rice. And the top is looking damper, and it's easy to stir now. So no problem stirring today. And day 3, you can even see a liquid layer on the bottom and the more solid layer on top. So it's time for stage 2 already. Day 3 is prepare the rice just as before. Same amount, same preparation. Going to steam that, and that'll be our second stage. 3 days, round fermentation, 1 brew. And here's the new steaming method. Look at this. What is this? This is a silicone mat, perforated mat. I saw EE from the YouTube channel EE Jia Chong Wei use this in one of her videos. So you can go watch her cooking videos for a lot of interesting content. But I saw her when she was brewing red yeast rice wine that she used this kind of silicone mat. So I wanted to try it out. I ordered it. The link is in the description, of course. And this silicone mesh disc is exactly the right size for my steamer. So measure things carefully. If it's not the right size, it's going to be a problem. But this covers all the holes. This is good. And I'm going to just put the rice right on top of it. And I think this is especially good for the small amount of rice I'm steaming right now. I'm going to steam it for 40 minutes. And the challenging thing is how to remove this without spilling the rice or burning myself. So, but there are holes in the steamer, so I can lift it with the chopsticks that way, and put it on the cooling rack and just slide it off. And again, I'm going to just flip this over, let it cool. So that's looking good. So now it's cooled to room temperature. I'm going to stir the first stage up and put the second stage in. And look at that. The rice did not stick to the mat at all. That was a lot easier than normal. The rice sticks a little bit to the cloth, but it does not stick at all to that silicone mat. So that's great. So that just goes in the cabinet to ferment. Day 4, that looks more uniform, but it is soft enough to stir, so that's good. It is thicker than normal because there's less water normally used in this recipe. That's a 5th day. Stir it again. Day 6. Okay, looking a little more wet on top. Okay, it's time for stage 3. Another 400 grams of sweet rice. And again, prepare this exactly the same way as before. Wash, soak, drain, and then steam. And after it's done steaming, I'm going to lift that out carefully again and slip it off, let it cool to room temperature. Yes, I really like that silicone disc. That's exactly what I needed. Okay, so this is the 3rd stage, and it smells right. It is fermenting. It's day 7 now. Looks pretty wet on top. Now, today I'm going to close the lid completely. That's going to be it for. It's not. This lid is not completely airtight. There's still going to be some air transfer back and forth, especially when I open it for photography. And we can just watch the fermentation progress day by day. I want this to. You can see liquid layer forming near the bottom. And some rice starting to fall down. So the rice at the very bottom, it's very soft pieces of rice. And it is relatively cool weather, so I'm assuming this is good enough to meet the criteria of winter. And also, since I only did 3 stages, I'm going to let this ferment for quite a bit longer. I want the fermentation to really be complete. So since I'm not doing the 9 stages, that would add up to a lot more days. I'm going to let this ferment with just my 3 stages. The third stage is going to be a long stage. And you can see the rice in the bottom half is really broken down. The rice in the top half is still more thick with the bubbles. So hopefully this is going to turn out. And it's been 38 days. That's enough time. It's bottling day. I am going to take a look at it and pour it through the filter bag and get it every last bit out here and squeeze it. So it took a little bit of effort to squeeze this. Could have been better. I had to be patient, but it did leave me with 346 grams of lees and 2 bottles here, 2 bottles of the cloudy rice wine. And I am going to make myself a bonus bowl of wine by adding the water to the lees. And I'm going to mix that in again and squeeze all the liquid out again, see if I get more. So I do get more wine out of it. Amount of lees I have left over at the end of that is 243 grams. So I really did get more wine out of the lees by doing that. So those are my 2 bonus bowls of cloudy rice wine, 3-stage spring wine. Let's taste this now. So the amount of lees we have left over, 243 grams. I think that's a good result for the amount of rice we started with. Okay, I'm going to drink those bonus bowls, and that gives me an idea of how it's going to taste later. And the aroma and taste I get is pretty sweet and citrusy. So that's my first impression. So let's get on to the real tasting. Let's fast forward 3 days. It does seem like it's not settling that much, so I'm glad that this is allowed to be a cloudy wine. If we had to get a clear wine out of this, doesn't look like that's the result I'm going to get. It's settling quite slowly. Hello, it's been 3 days, and it's time to taste this 3-stage spring wine, so-called spring wine. So, as you can see, it has not settled much. It's very soft and cloudy in the bottom, and not really transparent on the top. So this, it probably would have been best if it settled well and I could just drink the clear layer. I think I'm going to drink this as cloudy wine, and that's also, it might be because of the kind of yeast I'm using, or rather the kind of enzymes I'm getting from the Jiu. That probably explains the kind of the sediment that I'm seeing here. So I am going to mix this and drink it cloudy. It is fresh. It is perfectly fine to drink this cloudy. It hasn't generated any carbonation. This bottle is still very soft after being closed for 3 days. So let's get the taste as a cloudy wine. I do hear some bubbling. Must just be a bit residual. I don't really see anything. And the smell is fresh and citrus. The taste is a bit tart. Also quite a bit of sweetness at the beginning. And maybe a bit milky at the end. So that grapefruit flavor is still quite prominent. And that's what I would say the flavor of this rice wine is, again, is grapefruit. Texture very smooth, not no graininess. Texture is very soft. But it does have some viscosity. That's easy to see. Okay, so the taste is good. It's that grapefruit type flavor, and yeah, I just don't know how I can accomplish getting a clear wine out of this. Fermentation seemed to go fine. If I do 9 stages, what will I have to do? I think. Well, how will that affect things? I think by letting the enzymes act on the rice for so long, I do think I got maximum amount of sweetness from this. This doesn't taste starchy, but it obviously did have some trouble settling. So I'm going to have to think about this and decide what to do. If I want to do a 9-stage brew in this style, what will I have to do? Because this cloudy wine, it tastes great, but it's the kind of wine that you should consume, I'll consume in the next few months. It won't be something that I'll preserve for years. If I get a clear wine out of this, if I'm able to extract or pour off a clear wine, then I would want to preserve some of that for a longer period of time. So I'll be able to do different things depending on what kind of result I get, what product I get in the end. So we'll have to see about that. Let me know what you think in the comments, what direction I should go, and I hope you found this interesting. Thank you for watching.